Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a journey inside, well, the operating system of your own mind. We are diving deep into Daniel Kahneman's revolutionary work on decision-making.
And our mission today is to give you a kind of blueprint for what is probably the most famous cognitive architecture ever proposed.
It's this idea that your brain isn't just one single harmonious thing. It's more like a constant conversation.
Right, a duet, a really high-stakes duet between two completely different internal characters. And once you see them, really understand them, you get this huge advantage in navigating the world and, yourself.
Absolutely. We're here to give you that shortcut to understanding this whole internal dynamic, the illusions it creates, and maybe how to get a little bit of management control over the whole flawed but brilliant setup.
Okay, so let's meet the cast. The first character is what Kahneman calls System 1. We could just call it the Autopilot.
The autopilot, right. That's the lightning-fast ghost in the machine, isn't it? It's your intuition, your gut feeling.
Yeah, the part of you that's just running the show in the background, automatically, and it uses almost zero energy.
So it's what lets you, say, read the word coffee, and you immediately...
You taste it.
Yeah.
You smell it. It's the instant recognition of anger on someone's face. Or, and this is critical, it's the impulse that makes you slam on the brakes before you've even had time to consciously analyze the danger.
It's brilliant. It has to be for us to survive.
But speed, it comes at a price. The Autopilot is a fantastic storyteller,
Yeah.
but a terrible fact-checker. Kahneman called it a fabulist.
A fabulous. That's a strong word. Why that specifically?
Because it values a coherent story over the truth. It absolutely hates ambiguity. If there are gaps in the data, the Autopilot just dusts. It spins a quick, easy story to fill them in.
Using stereotypes, assumptions, whatever fits.
Whatever fits the easy narrative, it
Yeah.
always prefers that to a cold, complex reality.
Which brings us to character 2, the conscious architect. Or system 2. This is the careful one, the logical planner, the part of you that you think is in the driver's seat.
It is. It's the scientist inside you, the deliberate part that requires actual attention and effort. It's what you use when you have to, say, thread a needle.
Or that task of counting backwards from 100 by 7s.
Which is surprisingly hard. It takes real force of will.
So if the architect is so logical and deliberate, why aren't we all just making perfectly rational decisions all the time? What makes the autopilot storytelling so dominant?
The secret is, the architect is profoundly lazy.
Lazy.
Incredibly lazy. Sustained mental effort literally burns cognitive resources. It makes you tired. So when the autopilot generates a quick impression, like that person looks untrustworthy.
The architect just rubber stamps it.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Just rubber stamps the feeling and goes back to sleep. It defaults to the path of least resistance.
So our fast, intuitive, story-loving brain generates impressions, and our slow, logical brain is usually too tired to argue.
And that's how we fall into these cognitive traps, these illusions.
Okay, let's get into those. Where should we start?
We can start with the availability enchantment. This is one of the autopilot's favorite tricks. It gets us to judge how frequent something is, not by statistics, but by how easily we can remember an example of it.
It's all about the power of a vivid story, isn't it? After a big, terrifying news report about, say, a plane crash, the autopilot screams, "Flying is dangerous." The image is so available, so easy to recall, it feels like a common risk.
That is the mechanism, exactly. The autopilot is terrified of sharks. Why? Because they make a great movie. They're all over the news when there's an attack.
But statistically...
Statistically, you are far, far more likely to die from heart disease caused by a cheeseburger. But the cheeseburger doesn't make for a good theatrical story.
And that's closely related to another one, base rate neglect, the Siren Song of the story.
It is. It's when we're so attracted to a compelling narrative or a stereotype that we just completely ignore the basic mathematical odds. The base rate.
There's a classic experiment for this one.
Right. So, picture this. A man is quiet, he's meticulous, he loves order. Is he more likely to be a librarian or a farmer?
And your autopilot instantly shouts, "Librarian!" He fits the character perfectly.
Of course, but the architect, if it bothered to wake up, would say, hang on, forget the description, what are the odds?
And the odds are that there are vastly, vastly more farmers in the world than librarians.
But we ignore that simple fact. That's base rate neglect. And then there's anchoring. This one is.
Yeah.
It's just a foundational trick in any negotiation.
The first number you hear.
Yes. The mind drops an anchor at the very first number it hears, and then every guess you make after that gets pulled toward that initial value,
Yeah.
even if it's completely arbitrary.
The power of that first number is just incredible. If I ask you, was the population of Chicago above or below 5 million?
Yeah.
And then I ask you to guess the actual number.
That 5 million I just heard is now stuck in my head. It's a hook. My guess is going to be biased toward it, whether I like it or not.
Which is why stores always show the original price slashed out next to the sale price.
Even if it was never sold at that price. That first, higher number sets an anchor for what you think the item is worth.
Okay, so far we've looked at how the autopilot's need for speed creates flawed answers. But it also governs how we process value, which gets us into some really fundamental psychological laws.
That's the crucial link. The way we evaluate gains and losses is driven by an instant emotional reaction. It's a System 1 response. And the most powerful law here is loss aversion.
And the law basically states that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing.
Twice as powerful. The math is simple, but the psychology is brutal. Gaining $100 is a nice little moment.
But losing $100, so that feels like a gut punch, a real injury.
And that sharp, immediate sting of loss is what stops us from making rational, long-term decisions.
I know I've done this. I held onto a stock for years knowing it was a dud, just because selling it meant I had to make the loss real.
We had to realize the loss.
Yeah, and the thought of hitting that sell button felt so much worse than just letting it sit there and slowly drain away.
That's the paralysis mechanism. Loss aversion holds us hostage. We cling to failing investments, stale relationships, dead-end jobs, all because the act of losing what we already have is terrifying to the autopilot.
And this fuels what Kahneman called the endowment charm.
The simple magic, where we value things more just because they're ours. The moment you own something, a spell is cast.
Right, the coffee mug experiment.
Exactly. He gave people a simple coffee mug. The second they possessed it, the thought of giving it up triggered loss aversion. Suddenly, they demanded a much higher price to sell it than buyers were willing to pay.
The mug wasn't special.
Not at all. But the loss of my mug felt like a tiny little tragedy.
Okay, we have to get to the final layer here, which might be the hardest one to really wrap your head around, just when you think you've got this duet of System 1 and System 2 figured out.
He reveals there are actually two versions of you experiencing your life.
The experiencing self and the storytelling self.
Right. It's the difference between living your life and remembering it.
So the experiencing self is the one living in the moment, breath by breath. It cares about the duration of pleasure or pain. It's the self that feels the warm sun on your face for a whole afternoon.
But the storytelling self,
Yeah.
it's the novelist. It's the historian inside you, and it's the one that makes the decisions for the future. And here's the crazy part. It does not care about duration.
It doesn't care how long the good or bad thing lasted.
Not at all. It cares about only two things. The peak moment, so the most intense emotion, and the ending. And it writes the final story of what happened based on an average of just those 2 points.
The symphony example is perfect for this. You listen to 40 minutes of the most sublime, beautiful music, but in the final few seconds, there's this horrible screeching sound.
A terrible error. The storytelling self doesn't add up the 40 minutes of joy. It just labels the entire event, the concert that ended badly.
That bad ending just ruins the memory of the whole thing.
It completely overshadows the duration of the positive experience. And this changes everything. It means we often make decisions to give ourselves a good story to tell later, not necessarily a good experience in the moment.
We're letting the novelist run the life of the person who's actually living it.
That's the twist.
So, if the autopilot is fast, the architect is lazy, and the storyteller is biased, what's the practical way forward for you, for the listener?
The goal isn't to get rid of the autopilot. We need its speed. The goal is to become a better, more active manager for that lazy architect. You have to learn to ring a little mental alarm bell in high-stakes moments.
So when you feel a snap judgment about something you saw on the news, you have to stop. You have to ask yourself, is the availability enchantment fooling me here?
Am I judging this by the vividness of the story instead of the data?
And when you hear an initial number, a price, an offer, you have to force your architect to wake up. Whisper to yourself, I am being anchored.
Then you have to consciously try to calculate the value independent of that first number that got stuck in your head.
And when you feel that paralysis, that fear of leaving a situation that's okay, but not great, that job, that project.
Ring the bell. Ask yourself honestly, is this just loss aversion holding me hostage? Is it stopping me from seeing the potential gains of moving on?
Understanding this whole structure, it's really an invitation to be a more graceful, more humble, and ultimately wiser partner in this beautiful, flawed duet inside your own mind.
It's all about intervening at those critical moments.
And here's a final thought to take with you. Since we know your storytelling self defines your life based so heavily on the peak and the ending, I want you to consider a major project or relationship you're in right now. How are you prioritizing the final phase, the ending narrative of that event? Because you now know that this finale, not the day-to-day duration, is what will ultimately define the memory you keep and the story you tell yourself forever. Think about what that should change for you today.